So this is the Quick Cray. I developed this fly back in 2009, and the idea behind this fly was to come up with a relatively good representation of a crayfish that I could tie in 5 or 6 minutes. A lot of crayfish patterns take 15 or 20 minutes to tie. There's no way I'm spending 15 or 20 minutes tying a fly that I'm going to drag across the bottom for carp. You lose a lot of these when you're carp fishing, and I'm not going to spend 20 minutes on a fly and stick it in a log or a rock or a shopping cart and then spook the whole pool trying to go get it back. So this is a good solution. You can tie this in about 5 or 6 minutes. In the meantime, I've discovered that this works really well for large brown trout in the fall, and smallmouth bass really seem to dig it too. So I'm going to start my thread a little bit more than one hook eye back and build up a little thread bump there. Helps position your eyes. It's the way Bob Clouser does it. So break the thread off, take my lead eyes, position them on the close side of the shank against that thread bump, a couple of cross wraps, bring it back the other way, and the tension on the thread should get everything lined up kind of where you want it, centered. A couple more this way. And then before I do my yoke wraps, I put a couple around the shank in the front and the back. And then what I do is I go under the eye, but I stay above the shank. I'll tighten that all up for you. A little bit of adhesive never hurts, so I put a little Loon hardhead down here underneath the eyes. That penetrate in there a little bit. You can put some there too if you like. I don't know that that top makes a huge difference, but I don't think it hurts. Next we're going to invert the hook. This is tied Clouser style, so the hook point should ride up on this. That's why the dumbbell eyes are on the top of the shank, and now they're on the bottom of the shank. So when I select my bucktail, I'm actually taking it from the back of the bucktail, where people generally don't use those as much as they do from the underside. But I grab my fur from right here, so I'm trying to grab the brown with just a little bit of that yellow dye in it. And you want to start off with a pencil width, and by the time you clean that out, get rid of all the shorts, you're going to end up with about a half of a pencil width of a bucktail. So what we're going to do here is we're going to tie this in so that we have roughly about the hook length. Okay, we're going to transfer that measurement back, hold it in place, and we're going to wrap this, and you're just keeping the bucktail at this point on top of your hook shank. You can take those fibers up, sort of split them around the hook point like that, get them all through, and I just sort of support it underneath to stop them from rotating under the shank or around the sides of the shank too far. Okay, when we get right back by the hook barb, we're going to spiral that forward. At this point we lift our bucktail up, do a couple wraps here. Now we're going to grab that and tie it, and again we're keeping it on top of the shank and not letting it spin. Turn your thread behind the eyes. In that one step, what we've done is we've built sort of our antenna and the small appendages that the crayfish use to eat back here off the shank, put a little bit of bulk in the body, and this is going to serve as our tail piece. Next we're going to put in our Swiss straw. What I've done here is I open up the Swiss straw and I flatten it out, and then I cut it in equal halves, and then I take that half and I fold it over on itself like you would a letter in thirds, and I try to keep that the opening portion here facing up. So the important thing here is that we lay this down and get it to sort of encircle that hook like that, because we want this to spread out and it's going to form the top of our carapace. So sort of pinch it like that, a loose wrap, get it going. I hold it in the back with my fingers so that it's enveloping the hook sort of and staying wide there at the back. You see, as we fold that forward, it stays nice and wide. And then just get that out of your way. Bring your thread back up. And this is where we're going to build our dubbing up, and that's going to form the sort of underbody and the carapace of the fly. So the idea here is to put on a pretty generous amount of dubbing. You want to put it on as thick as you can without it bullying to the side. Okay, and this doesn't have to be super neat because this is just sort of an underbody. Okay, I'm going to use my rotary feature here. I'm just going to spin this on, and this is going to build up the bulk to make the fly have sort of the right profile, and this is also going to be how we split the claws when we put those on in a minute. And the trick here is you want to build this up, but you don't want to make it so big that it's going to have a huge surface area, and you also don't want to build it up so fat that you're closing off your hook. That seems pretty good to me, and we're just going to do a couple wraps there. Got a nice little ball of dubbing. So what I'm going to do here is show you how I get the feathers for the claws. So I have here my Whiting Farms 4B hen cape. I'm going to reach down here at about the bottom 1/3, find two feathers that match real well. Get those plucked out of there. What you want to do is line the tips of those up like that. And then we're going to fold all this back, and that leaves you with two nice feathers for claws. Then what you want to do is take all this webby stuff down here at the bottom, the fluff, pick it off. That's how you're going to make your claws. When I put these on, I put them on one at a time, and what I do is I hold the feather like this, and I bring it up underneath, and I place it this way. It just makes it a little easier to get it lined up and oriented the way you want it to if you do it that way. Once you have the feather oriented the way you want it to, just like that, do some thread wraps, crank it down, and we'll wrap that back a little ways, then fold it over so we're really locking those in. And then we'll get ready for the next feather. Okay, so I'm going to do the same procedure for the next feather. I grab it like this, bring it underneath, and just position it where I want it to. That looks great. Right there. Okay, so now we have our claws in. Fold it over so you lock it down. I'll even out the body a little bit there. Trim that off. Okay, so now I'm going to tie in the mono, and this is the rib. Catch that back there. Really lock it down good. We don't want that slipping. Mono's kind of a slippery material. Bring this right up to the back of your claws, and that ball we made, fold it over to the side so it's out of the way. So now I'm going to tie in the mohair yarn. Just grab that, get it locked in good. And this is going to represent sort of the legs on the body. Bring that back, and I'm going to wrap this, and I'm not really worried about picking those fibers out. We can Velcro those when we're done, and when you fish it they tend to come out. Mohair is pretty loose. So I wrap that back right up against the eyes, lock it in twice, and trim that off. Now it's time to bring our carapace over. Grab your Swiss straw. That looks pretty good. What we're trying to do here is get one larger segment up front behind the claws to look like the carapace for the crayfish, and then we're going to do closer wraps after that. Try to get 3 of these in, end up right against the eye, and then do one once you get past the eye. There's 3. Go under the eye. 4. I'll wrap that one twice. Bring my thread over. Wrap that a couple times there. Really lock that in good, because again, mono slippery. Trim that off. We're just about done with the fly. So you want to lift all of that up. Build up a little thread underneath all that bucktail and the Swiss straw. Grab your whip to finish tool. Put a 4 or 5 turn whip finish in there. Cut your thread off. What you're going to do is fold that Swiss straw over, sort of flatten it out a little bit. Like that. Grab the whole deal together. Cut it just, I don't know, about there. Clean up that last one. There's your tail. So let's rotate this over. Got a good look at your tail. Look at the profile, looks good. Got one of these little loon wire brushes here. I take this and just sort of start scrubbing on the body a little bit. Free some of those fibers. Just make it look a little extra buggy. That seems pretty good to me. We don't need to go crazy with this. Just get some fibers picked out. So there you have it. The video worked out to be about 12 minutes, but when you're actually tying this and not instructing about it, you can tie it in 5 or 6 minutes, and quick and close enough. Guide style is definitely the name of the game here. Again, you're going to drag it across the bottom. No point in spending 20 minutes. This is far and away my most productive carp fly, definitely my go-to. The only 2 things I ever change about this is sometimes I tie some in olive, and every once in a while I tie a couple with bead chain eyes, because splashdown can be a factor when you're targeting carp. There you have it. Quick Cray. Thanks for watching.